Assalamu alaikum nerds. How are y'all doing? Okay, as always, my name's Teep Soil, that's Wansh, and this is day 2 of us teaching the full stack development course. Let's just go real quick, let's just audibly go over what we covered yesterday. Yesterday we just talked about the course in depth, and we taught you guys how to set up your environments, how to run an HTML file to see live updates and whatnot. And of course, we talked about headings and gave you guys a task to create some headings. And I saw the channel, many of you did post it, and it was pretty amazing. All right. So today, Lunch, would you like to tell us what we're going to cover today? Would you like to explain to them?
Sure, please give me 1 second. I'll be sharing my screen to show you guys something. Can you guys see my screen? Assuming you can. So what we'll be doing today and tomorrow, I plan to finish up the remaining important HTML tags along with the some of the attributes that they take, and we'll be reaching this. This is what we'll be creating in 2 days. That is today and tomorrow. So let's start. So this is what we've done yet. We've covered the HTML head and body tags. Everything that's in the head tag is not directly visible here, and everything in the body tag is. These are the heading tags from H1 to H6 that we covered. The tag format is that it starts with less than, ends with greater than, and the inner stuff is called the children content. The for example, this is my website, and if you give it an attribute, so this will be an attribute. It's a property that we pass on to these tags. Give me 1 sec. Okay, so if you type down href equals and then in double quotes something like https google.com. So this is basically your link. When you click it, it opens up whatever is there. And you can also link to other pages or assets. For example, if I type down gold.html, this is another HTML page. You can redirect from this web page to another web page. Moving on, we're going to be covering the image tag as well. So if we put down img, uh, give me 1 sec. Yeah. So if we type down img with src, now src here stands for source. So if we put down src equals, and we put an image in the directory where you've placed the HTML file. So for example, I've got my profile picture right here as profile.jpg. So if you put down profile.jpg, there you go. It embeds an image. Another attribute for this image tag is the width, and you can set it to, for example, 300, and there we go. By the way, if you guys want to catch up to what we're doing, you can use VS Code along with the live server extension, which was shared in the notes yesterday, to see your HTML file live as we go. Uh, Perfect. Okay, so please give me 1 sec. Yes, so moving on, we'll be starting with CSS soon. So in CSS, we use a tag inside the head tag, and it's called the style tag. STY style, yes. And now we can, please give me 1 sec. Yes. So in this tag, we can define styles which will change the appearance of any of the other tags in body. So for example, if I type down h1 and give it some content, for example, CS rocks, you can use this h1 tag and mention it here, and put some curly brackets ahead. So this is the syntax of CSS. Inside, you can define a lot of attributes that will change how this looks. So for example, if we put down color, colon, and then blue, semicolon. So this is the syntax. So as you can see, this changes the appearance of the content inside the h1 tag to blue. Any other text that you have will not be affected because it changes only the h1 tag. Perfect. Uh, Moving on, there's another tag that you should know about, and it's called the HR tag. So what HR does is creates a separator between any one set of contents and the other. So, for example, in the goal file, this separator that separates the heading and these two is called the HR tag. And now I'll be introducing you guys to a new tool that you can use to inspect and debug your HTML code, and it's called the inspector. A lot of you guys might be familiar with this, but this allows you to view your HTML code and certain aspects of it. And you can see, we can select anything using this select icon and then see it's in our HTML. We can see its styles right here, and you can edit them to see the changes live. So for example, you can change this color and it will be shown to you live. And you can do these edits very quickly using the DevTools.
Right. Okay. Let me just one
Right.
second. Let me explain to you
Yes.
guys how HTML CSS works. Okay. Now you see on the right side of the screen. He defined, first of all, he used a tag. Okay, he used a style tag. That basically means that anything between the style tag, that's gonna be pure CSS. All right. We call this the HTML CSS because we're typing that CSS inside of an HTML file. Okay. Now, remember when we added those tags, such as Wunsch did, he added an h1 tag in the body, right? So inside of the style, first he wrote the tag that he wanted to edit, right? The h1. Okay, then he added curly brackets. In CSS, curly brackets are basically used to say like, oh, this is going to be what this is about to be about. Okay, so it's basically used to say anything inside of the curly brackets is going to be the attribute, is going to be the style of the thing that we just defined. So if he adds another heading right now, right, if he adds another heading below CS rocks using the same tag, using the same h1 tag, it will also have the color blue because in the style file he defined h1 as the color blue. Okay, so anything that you guys want, and this is just the color, there are a lot more CSS attributes that you can use, right? So basically in the style file, whatever you declare, whatever you add there, whatever tag you add there, it's gonna have an effect on the body as well. So for instance, if you were to add a border to the image, we're gonna cover that later in this same lesson. If you were to add the border to that image, he would do img curly brackets, and then inside he would write the stuff that would give that image the border. Alright guys, you always in the style file, you write the tag that you're about to edit, and then you inside of the curly brackets you add curly brackets. You always add curly brackets, and inside of the curly brackets you type the attributes that you're gonna assign to the thing. All right, please continue on.
Of course. So let's move on to some of the other CSS styles that we can see. So for example, if we give the image tag a border of say 1 pixel wide, solid green. So this is how you define. So you define the border width. So, and this could be any of solid, dashed, like that, or dotted. But most people preferably use solid. And the next is the color. So now it is time we should discuss how colors work in CSS. So there are a lot of preset colors such as green, blue, yellow, cyan, whatever. But if you want to define a custom color, uh, what we use in CSS, they're called hex codes. And I believe CS and ICT students from IGCSE are familiar with this. But you put hash And then we're looking at hexadecimal. So the value we define RGB as in red, green, and blue. Consequently, with values going from 0 to F. So, example, if we want all red, we go F00. So this F right here is for red, the 0 is for green, and the 0 is for blue. So F0 would bring us yellow, which is a combination of red and green, and so on. Now, VS Code provides a very handy tool here. You could use the color picker and define any color, and it would give you the RGB codes or the hex codes that you can use in your CSS right here, and that would give the border of that color. Another CSS that you can repeat is border radius, and this is used to round the elements or make the elements round. So, for example, if we do 24px, now this border radius defines how round elements will be. So, for example, if we write 100px or 5px, you can see the changes right here. So, moving on, there is another property that you should know about, and it's called margin. So, for example, what margin does is it puts gaps on either sides of the tags. So, for example, if we put margin top and if we put 100px, that would give 100px spacing above the image. Yes, exactly. And consequently, for margin left, margin bottom, and margin right, uh, these CSS styles are applied. So, Ati, would you like to continue? Wait a sec.
Yes.
Hello?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Before
Ati.
we move further to creating the goal, right? I just want to talk a bit about the text themselves, right? All the attributes. So, once, would you like to? Okay. So the headings, right? The text. Let's start with the CSS attributes of all the text, right? There are a lot of them. All right. There's font family. There's font weight. There's opacity. Everything, right? So let's discuss a bit about the CSS attributes that we can have to text and images and all of those kind of elements, right? So, color, that is of course the first thing, right? So it can be anything you want, including the hex code, as long as you provide the hex code, right? The second one is going to be font size, right? Now, font size is basically the size of the text, right? So, one, should you mind adding like font size is equal to like 20px or something? So basically, font size, it is basically used to define the size of the text itself. All right. So whatever you have it to be, the text is going to be that size. The second thing that we're going to talk about is font weight. Font weight is referred to as like the boldness of the text itself, right? So it's going to be bold, it's going to be light, etc. So if it's bold, okay, font weight is bold, then you will see the text right there, it's bolder, okay? However, if it's light, then the text would be lighter, okay? Exactly, okay. So then we have font family, all right? Now, font family, that is basically the font itself, right? So it could be anything. It could be into, as long as it's in the as long as it's either downloaded, or I'm pretty sure that CSS allows us to use some fonts like sans serif or New Times Roman. Yeah, exactly. You can use some fonts, right? That basically changes how the font looks like. All right. And what else? What else? Once, do you have any other that you would like to talk about?
None yet. There is padding, but we'll be covering that later.
Right. Okay. So those are just the basics of how the text looks like to you. Of course, the text color and then the background color. Yes, the background color. If you want to add like a background to the text, like for instance, if you do a background color is equal to yellow, then that means that the text will have a yellow background. That is the body inside of the text, right? Yeah, that means that the text now has a yellow background. One more thing before we close text, that is going to be the align. What do you call it? Text align. Right, text can be either center center, start, or end. All right. The start basically means the left, and end basically means the right. All right. Yeah, I guess that's all about the basics of how the text looks like. These are the main attributes that you should have on your fingers about text. Let's move on now, please.
All right. So now we'll be trying to replicate what we can see in the previous slide. So let's inspect the code first of all. So first there is a heading that is centered and that has a bit of margin on the uh, top and the bottom. So let's start off with clearing everything we have currently and starting off. Yes. So first we have, let's take a size of h2 and put down the heading. And now we can go to styles and define that all h2s should have a text align or center. Let's see what we get. Yes. And let's go with a font weight of light. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and look at the separator. So it looks like it's an HR. So let's use the HR tag. Uh, Perfect. Now, one thing what I've noticed, this is made in dark mode, so we'll have to edit the whole HTML pages styles. So we do that using the body tag styles. So if we type down, for example, background color, and okay, so here it's time to give you guys a really nice tool to get hex colors, and that's going to be uh, this page. So this page has a lot of color swatches along with the hex codes that you can use for your CSS. I'm going to be putting these in the discussion thread there. Uh, yes. And so for example, let's look at the slate thing. So we want a dark slate uh, saturation. So let's go for 800. So copy that. Background color will be this. Now we have to make the text lighter. So we're going to be using the color tag. So color white. There we go. Now let's notice that the HR tag is not as bright as all of the other text. So let's give the HR style. Uh, wait, HR, and we're going to be giving it. Okay, there's a better way to do this. When you're defining the HR, you can just give it a color attribute and you can define a hex code right here. So let's take this hex code, for example. And if we save it, we can see right here, the hex code has made it darker. Perfect. Now we need an image on the left. So let's use the ing tag with an src of profile. And by the way, you can use any image you want. You just have to put it in the same folder as the HTML file and you can refer to it using this. And for example, if you have a directory, let's name it assets. And if you want to host the profile image or any other asset from there, you have to refer to it using assets and a forward slash. So that denotes a directory. Now the image looks like it's too big, so let's make it small using the width attribute. Let's make it 300, for example. Perfect. Now we need to give the image a light blue border. So we're going to be using img and put a border of 2px solid. And let's go for a blue color. And we're going to be editing this using VS Code's color picker to something that looks like that. Perfect. And we're going to be making it rounded using border radius. Let's go with something like 24 pixels. Yes, that is round enough. And now we need the text that we have inside another container. So here I'm going to be introducing another tag and it's named the div tag, div. So what the div tag does is it basically creates a box and that box can be placed anywhere with CSS so that you can do complex styles like left and right alignment. So let's give this div a content of, say, for example, h3, head 2, and some content. And here we're going to be using another tag, and it's called the BR tag, and it's used for line break. So what it does is, for example, in HTML, if you type down multiple lines, the HTML will consider that a single line only. So to get around that, we use the BR tag. So if we write down test and then BR and then test again, we get it as multiple lines. And that's perfect. That's what we need. So we're going to be creating another box, div, that will contain our test text. So let's just, yeah. And now we need a way to shift this div on the right side of this image. So here we're going to be using another style, and this style is very important if you want to use CSS. So let's give div. Okay, there's one more thing we need to do. For divs, if you want to address one box, ignore the other boxes using CSS, because until now we have been using CSS for every new names. So we need that ID ID and we can use ID to address dash right. So you can just uh, then we can just put, for example, border be left this border so that we can see what's going on, and we have to shift this to the right. So here I'm gonna be showing it right. I'll put it we can put the float. If we put, for example, image and put float, uh, excuse me, yes. So what it does, it defines that the image should be on the left side of the page, and we can put stuff on the right as well. So we'll be defining float right for the content, and let's give it a width. So we're going to be using the width style for the content div for something, for example, 400 pixels, 500, no, 450. Yes, that fits perfectly. And we're going to be using the border radius to make it rounded. 12px, no, 12px. Perfect. And now we're going to use another style. So you can see the margin style. So you can just give everything a text, and then we have another which is called name. For example, if you have 20px, and if you decrease the width because that's going to be overlapping, you can see that as we increase the padding, we're increasing the space between the borders and the content. So let's go for something like 20 or 15 pixels. And now, if we use the inspect and look at the h3 tag, that's our heading, we can see that there's a little bit of spacing on the top that we need to remove. So let's give the h3 tag a margin, because margin is to do with spacing, and let's give it a margin of 0. Perfect. So that has removed the spacing. If you guys have any questions, by the way, feel free to post it on the thread, the discussion thread, and ping us. We'll be solving. What does HR mean? So what HR does is it separates one part of the page with another. So this is the HR tag, for example. If you put multiple HRs as an example, this is what it does. It adds a separating line. Right. So moving on, let's see. I think we're almost there, but we need to define the font. that goes well. So this is a serif font by default, but we're going to be using sans serif. So let's give the body tag. So whatever we put inside the body tag, it applies to every element. So let's go with the font family as Ateep showed us, and let's go with something like Arial. So this is a font that you might be familiar with, but it gives it a very clean look. How do we give space between the profile box and the box with content? So uh, I assume by the box with content you mean this, and the profile box of this. So what we've done is we've defined that the image float on the left. So this will be aligned to the right because we're using float right. So as we decrease the width of this content box, we'll be increasing the space of this content box versus the image. So if I use 300 px, for example, the spacing has increased. If we use 200 px, the spacing has increased more. So we can use that to define how wide this will be. Perfect. So as we can see, the image that we've created, we're using a width of 300 px. So because it's a square image, we can infer that it will be a height of 300 px too. So we can go ahead and give this a height of 300 px, or maybe lesser, like 260 px, 270. That's our logo. And we're going to be editing the width so that it matches and there's little space between the two. So perfect. We have replicated this setup right here in HTML. Okay, over to Ateeb. Is there anything that you would like to explain?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. 1 second. Okay, so somebody asked. Okay, somebody asked. Okay, sorry. The main thing that you have to know right now is we're using pixel values. We're using absolute values, right? This is not how it looks like. This is not how it goes when you actually code, right? So once if you like make the screen wider, the browser screen wider, they'll see what I'm talking about. If he moves it to the right, you see
Yes.
how the values, the width and height of the things, they're fixed, right? One thing that we can use to combat this problem and to make it responsive is percentage values. All right. So I'd like to explain those for a second because we're talking about width and we're talking about height. If the content, if hashtag content is given a width of, let's just say 60%, that means that it's going to take up the width of 60% of the page. And then the image is given a width of, let's just say 30%, right? You remove it from the image tag and just add it to the image inside of the style. So now you'll see that if he like increases the width between the in the page, it will automatically adjust the div sizes to the web page itself. Unlike before when it was fixed, now it adjusts to the browser's width and height itself. All right, so this is how it mostly goes, right? We use percentages, we use view widths, view height, but we're going to talk about those later. But right now I just want to show you guys how percentages work, and this is also the same for height as well. All right, as well as border radius, basically any amount that you can assign number to, almost any amount that you can assign number to in pixels, that can be written as a percentage. Just 1 second, let me just change my internet so that the recording stays undisturbed. I'll let you know, just 1 sec. Right, okay, please continue. I just wanted to let you guys know about how percentage values work. Alright, please continue once. Thank you.
All right. That is an excellent point by Atif. We should use percentage values so that we can dynamically, flexibly arrange the elements that we want. But there is another trick that we can use. So if we look at the source page right here, we can see that the image size stays unchanged while the text size changes. So we're going to be using static. For example, if we give images tag static width and height of 300 pixels, just for reference, we can change the size of this box so that it is always sized accurately in a way that the 300 pixels and this add up to the viewport width. So we're going to be using a function which is the calculate function. We type in and we use value. So I think we're using percentages. But here we're going to be the screen right here. So this way we can calculate to 100 times. Size this, you can see that this box automatically resizes itself to the viewport width. Perfect. Are there any questions or doubts that any of you guys have? If so, please share them in the thread. Okay, so there's an excellent question by Anonymous215, which is can we make the profile picture a circle or a triangle? So, for making it a circle, the most conventional way of doing it is increasing the border radius to a value so high that it makes the whole thing rounded. So, for example, if I put down 1000 pixels, that achieves our goal of creating a circle. You could do the same thing with content, but if you do it, you would see a glitch that the text does not fit perfectly inside a circle because we increased the border radius or how round it is. For creating a triangle, there is no conventional way of mapping a triangle shape to this. For that, you would use a tool like SVG, which is Scalable Vector Graphics, and then include that in the HTML file using the IMG tag. That is the conventional way of doing it. Uh, there's a question by Specs. Can we do the same thing for the heading H2 you created? Yes, we can make the H2 round if that's what you mean. So if we add a border radius, of say 100 pixels, it would technically not add any difference to the heading because it is already a full width and there's no border around this heading that we're making round and the text always stays how it is. You mean can it stay in only one place? I'm sorry, but I do not get what you mean by uh, okay, so let me just get something clear here. So if we're looking at the S2 tag, if we look at it using the inspect tool, we can see that its width is full. And that is by default for all heading tags, including this one, its width is set to the width of the container, that is the div. So there's no need to put any CSS to make this responsive because it already is. So for example, if we resize, you can see that the heading is always centered. Like how you're moving it when you drag the screen. Okay, so if you want to keep it only in one place, I would suggest that you go with text align of left and then add a padding on the left side of something like 150 pixels so that it stays in only one way. But yes, there's no element of this here that we could make responsive. That's just how it is. Okay, how to fix the text glitch when you change the shape of the box? So initially, if I revert the few last changes that we did, we remove the percentages as well. So we were using a custom preset width for this that would stay constant as you resize the window. So that's not responsive at all. But what we're doing is that we're adding a dynamic width to this content. So for example, if we type down calc and then 100 viewport width and then subtract the width of the image and something more to compensate for the gap, but something like 400 pixels, for example, and if we reload this, that would make the width of this container responsive so that they never collide, even if you drag it too close. Okay, Volt is asking, can you show how to make the text box? So we're using the div tag, div, and the div tag is basically a box. And we're giving this box using the id hash content. We're giving it a border of 2 pixels, solid. And we could use dash or dotted here, but most people prefer solid. And we're giving it a color that is defined like this: RGB and red, green, and blue values. So that creates a border on this box. That that's how it's made. Perfect. Looks like there are no more questions. Atif, would you like to continue?
Yeah, okay. Uh, some of you might be confused a bit on what's going on, and I completely understand that. So, first of all, I tell you guys not to worry. All right. At the end, in the last 10 minutes, what me and Once are gonna do, we're gonna assign you guys a task. Okay, and that task is gonna be as simple as the one that we just showed you. Okay, the recording's gonna be uploaded by midnight, just like how yesterday's recording was uploaded almost instantly. All right, and you will be assigned the task to do. It's going to be extremely similar to what Once just did right now, but based on your own profile picture and your own colors. Okay, we're going to talk about that later, but first of all, let me tell you guys that if you're confused on anything that happened today, if you're confused on HTML, CSS, if you're confused on how IDs work, or what attributes there are, let me show you guys. Okay, so listen, today the attributes that we showed you guys, those aren't the only attributes that exist. Okay, there's a lot more. Okay, and you can check them all out in the website that I told you guys about yesterday. All right, w3schools.com. If you go over here, you'll see that there is a CSS tab right over here. Okay, and you can see all of the attributes, almost all of the attributes right over here. Like for instance, we were talking about rounded corners. We were talking about colors. We were talking about text, right? So the different text attributes, text formatting. All of that is present in this website. All right, all of the CSS attributes. And if you want to get ahead of the course yourself, which I highly suggest you do, go here, okay? It even shows the more complicated stuff that we're gonna go over in the future. However, this is not what we're gonna go over right now. This is the future, all right? But all of the things, all of the different things that you can assign a CSS, everything, positions, everything that you need, right? It's all in this one web page, and that is the CSS web page. And same goes with the HTML tags. Everything is over here. All right, you guys can use this in your free time. I highly suggest you use this in your free time, and you can do practically anything that you want here. We're gonna spend this week just doing what I'm showing over here. It's just gonna be us going through each of these tags, going in depth through all of them, going through depth in all of the CSS attributes, and let me give you guys your today's project, okay? Before we end this session. All right. So what you have to do is create a similar thing to Wunsch's to the goal that we just achieved today. Wunsch, can you send a screenshot of the goal in the thread, right? So you guys, your
Oh,
task is to create a similar thing, all right? But the twist is that you have to use your own colors and write your own descriptions, write your own text, right? You have to use your own profile picture as well, okay? And remember, if you have any questions, you let us know. But there's one more twist. You have to make it look different. Add your own magic to it. Research a bit on more attributes. Research a bit on more tags that you can use to make yourself look better. Maybe instead of one text box, you add two text box or three text box. You know, the world is all yours. Okay, it's yours to you can do basically anything that you want, but try to add a twist to yourself. Okay, don't copy exactly. Use the inspiration. Use Wunsch's screenshot as an inspiration. Use Wunsch's goal as an inspiration, and create your own kind of mini portfolio. All right, Wunsch, do you have anything else to add, or should we conclude the session?
that is all. Let us wrap up and let us see the awesome things that you guys come up with.
All right, sounds great. Okay, thank you guys for being here. And remember, if you have any questions, you can always ask us in the thread, and we'll of course answer it all the time. And if you got confused today, don't worry at all. We're gonna cover each of those tags that we just explained and more tomorrow. Tomorrow is just gonna be us describing all the different tags and all the different CSS attributes and talking a bit about classes. All right, guys. See you soon, and goodbye.